Alright, I'm going to give you the 1-minute summary because I value your time. The ASUS ROG Xbox Ally X has a terrible name, but it has really good performance. In my testing, it was getting about 50% more performance than the Steam Deck OLED. There are some big caveats there though, so check out the performance section of this video before you walk away with just that. Even still, performance is tied for the best I've tested in any handheld ever. It has decent but not great battery life, 2 hours on the low end and goes up from there. Amazing thermals, as good as anything I've ever tested, quiet fans, and amazing ergonomics. It's tied with the Steam Deck for my personal top tier of comfort. The speakers are also unreal good. I never actually used them past 60% volume, and they sound really good at that, and they are shockingly loud. The screen is good, but for $1,000, I really wish it was OLED and it had smaller bezels. This feels like a relatively big handheld with a relatively small screen, which is almost entirely because it's got some big old chunky bezels. My biggest issue with the Xbox Ally X is that it's marketed as an Xbox, and it's so clearly not a Xbox. If you think you're getting an Xbox like a console, you're going to return it. This is not a console, this is a Windows PC with some half-baked, low-effort Xbox software slapped on top. And it's honestly embarrassing that Microsoft, the largest software company in the world by market cap, feels comfortable shipping this level of half-assed software. It's the equivalent of putting C on every single answer on the multiple choice test and acting like you still tried your best. Also, this is priced as a Windows PC, not as an Xbox. The Xbox Series X, which is the fastest Xbox available, is priced at $650, and that's after it just got a price increase, which is insane for a 5-year-old console, but that's a story for another time. This one is $1,000, and that is a crazy amount of money to pay for a console. And they don't even throw in a case. The Steam Deck throws in a case for their cheapest model that's less than half the price of this. That's another $70 if you want to buy the name brand one, which is crazy. So who is this handheld for? This is for handheld PC enthusiasts with money to burn and who want the best performance, who don't mind tinkering in software and messing with settings and updating drivers and managing TDP, and is very familiar with what I'll call Windows quirkiness. Do not recommend this to your buddy who only plays consoles. They will hate it. It is not an Xbox, it's a Windows PC. Okay, so that's the summary. If that's all you needed, my only ask is that if it was useful to you, leave a like and sub on the way out. This video is not sponsored. I bought both Xbox Allies on my own dime, so I would really appreciate the support. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this review, starting with what I think is by far the biggest issue with the Xbox Ally X, which is the software, and redundant software specifically. There's basically 3 ways to do everything that you want to do on this handheld. You have the Xbox experience, brought to you by the Xbox team, Armory Crate, brought to you by ASUS, and Windows, brought to you by Microsoft. And these are some examples for how redundant the software experience is, and redundancy in software is not a good thing. If there are a bunch of different ways to do the same thing, it just makes it confusing and clunky for the user. So for example, if you want to turn the Xbox off, you can do it in all 3 ways. If you want to look at your games library, you got your Xbox, your ASUS, and your Windows games library. The Xbox button opens the Xbox menu, and that has ASUS's Command Center, but then right next to the Xbox button also opens Command Center. The library button, you can either have open the Xbox Experience library or the ASUS Armory Crate library, but the Xbox button also takes you to the library in just a couple more clicks. And in my opinion, despite this being branded an Xbox, ASUS's software with Armory Crate is much more full-featured and it's easier to use. They've been working on it for years, so they've actually improved it quite a lot. And while I think the Xbox experience will ultimately improve, and I'm probably going to like it better because I generally like how clean and minimal Xbox does their software, personally, right now, it's worse because you can't do a lot of things that you want to do. So I prefer using Armory Crate because it has a ton more features, but at that point, there's nothing Xbox about this Xbox console. It's just an ROG Ally X with better ergonomics. And let me tell you, the ergonomics are really S tier, at least for me. But this is something reviewers aren't going to talk about, even though they should mention it because it's a daily experience. This is what happens when you try and uninstall a game. If you go through the Xbox experience, you hit Manage Extension, which then takes you to whatever launcher the game is from, usually Steam for me, and then you can uninstall from there, which kind of sucks as a user experience. In Armory Crate, if you want to uninstall a game, you can just hit X on the game, but then it takes you to the Windows program menu, which then you have to go find the game again, which is so dumb. Also, I wouldn't recommend uninstalling games this way. I would highly recommend uninstalling through whatever the games launcher is, because if you uninstall through the Windows program menu, it's easy for Windows uninstall to leave old files and folders, and then you're just going to have some junk files sitting around. So whichever way you want to do it, they're both pretty terrible console experiences for uninstalling a game, and uninstalling games is something you're going to be doing a lot. Are you seeing how this is just a Windows PC and not an Xbox console, despite how deceptive Microsoft's marketing is? On that though, I do have to give credit where credit's due. Swapping apps by holding the Xbox button is amazing. It's by far my favorite Xbox feature. I ranted about this in my Xbox Ally review, so I'll leave it linked below so I can keep this brief. But another huge pain point with this Xbox is updating drivers and software. If you want to update an Xbox, you go into settings and you hit update. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Can you help me update my drivers?
Absolutely, Sam. I can help you figure out how to get those drivers updated. Just let me know what device or component you need to update, and we'll get into it.
This device, the one I'm on right now.
Got it, Sam. So to update drivers on your Windows machine, you can just hop into the device manager, find the device in question, and choose the update driver option. It's pretty straightforward.
To update the ASUS ROG Xbox Ally X, first you go into Windows Update, dumb, because this is an Xbox, but whatever. Then second, you go into Armory Crate, ASUS's software, dumb, again, because this is an Xbox, but whatever. Then you have to go into Update at My ASUS, dumb, because this is still an Xbox and it's not even listed on Microsoft's how to update your Xbox Ally page, which just goes to show how little effort Microsoft actually put into this. And then fourth, there are also updates in the Microsoft Store. There are 4 different places to update your Xbox Ally X, and none of them are branded Xbox or Xbox themed. That is crazy. So if you couldn't tell, the software kind of sucks, it's half-baked, and Microsoft did a really lazy job at this one. Now let's get into performance, and just off the bat, performance is really good. The RAM is clocked at 8,000 megatransfers per second, whereas the old Ally X had 6,400, and it says 24 gigs of RAM, which is enough for 1080p. 16 gigabytes isn't ideal, which is how much is on this, because RAM and VRAM are shared, and since this is 1080p, 16 gigs at 1080p just isn't quite enough to make it do it. This is an exercise in futility. Nobody buy this. We're not talking about this, though. I have a whole video on it if you want to check it out. All my testing for this is done at the maximum 25 watts, but I also tested things at 17 watts, which we're going to talk about at the end. All right, so starting with Cyberpunk at 720p, the Xbox Ally X got 72 FPS, whereas the Steam Deck OLED got 47 FPS. But if you bump that up to 1080p on the Xbox Ally X, then you get 50 FPS. So in Cyberpunk, the Steam Deck OLED and the Xbox Ally X get about the same frame rate when the Xbox Ally X is at 1080p versus the Steam Deck's 720. Well, it's not quite 720, it's 800, but it doesn't matter. In Red Dead 2 at 720p, the Xbox Ally X got 70 FPS, whereas the Steam Deck OLED got 49 FPS, almost exactly the same as what it was in Cyberpunk. And at 1080p, the Xbox Ally X got 51 FPS. So at 720p, the Xbox Ally X gets about 50% more performance than the Steam Deck OLED. At 1080p, it gets about the same performance as the Steam Deck gets at 800p. And I'm gonna be honest, at this screen size of 7 inches, to me, 1080p doesn't feel worth it. I would rather have a 720p screen and use better graphics settings, or just have a higher frame rate, or go up to an 8-inch screen because there's room in here on the bezels. But at 7 inches, 1080p versus 720p, it is a huge performance cost, and I don't think it looks that much better. I don't think the resolution increase is what's going to give you the best visual experience. I would rather have a 720p screen, or at least something that's scaled down to pixel perfect scaling at 720p, than have a 1080p on this small 7-inch screen. That's just me personally, but I think running the graphics at like high in 720 versus low in 1080, I think the high in 720 look better, and you're going to be getting like about the same frame rates. As far as battery life goes, at 25 watts, which is the max you can do unplugged, and maxed out brightness, I got a 2-hour battery life. That is the worst case scenario on battery life. You can only get better from that, but 2 hours is pretty meh. And here's the real kicker on this handheld. At 17 watts versus 25 watts, you're only losing about 10 to 20% of your performance. And so you're getting an hour more battery life and you're getting less heat and less fan noise. So unless you really need that extra 10 to 20% of performance, I would really recommend using 17 watts basically all the time. Then you get like a 3+ hour battery life, and that's like pretty solid for a PC handheld. As far as the overnight battery drain, it was really good. I was only getting around 2 to 3% battery drain if I was running Xbox Experience. But on that, if I was running Windows, which you could accidentally open, which I did a lot, then if Windows was running in the background, you get a 6 to 7% battery drain overnight. And if you want to stop Windows from running in the background, you have to do a full restart on the console. So that's kind of annoying. Either way, it's actually a pretty good battery drain as far as a Windows handheld experience. I'm not mad about it. For thermals, nothing to talk about. They are so damn good. I never saw it get above 70 degrees, which is awesome thermals, and the fans are very quiet. So seriously, they knocked it out of the park on this one. The thermals are fantastic. So if you couldn't tell by now, I actually think the hardware on this is about as good as it gets, other than the screen. I've got some problems with the screen that we talked about, but performance and battery life and thermals and the overall ergonomics, it is a really quality handheld. The problem is, this thing has an identity crisis. It doesn't know, is it an ROG Ally? It's got all the software, it's got most of the hardware. Is it an Xbox? It's got some pretty shitty Xbox software. Or is it a Windows PC? It's mostly just running Windows. And it doesn't know, and so it gives you the software for all three. And because of that, it's a really confusing, convoluted experience to use this. And I would say for most people, especially if they're console gamers, but even just regular gamers, this is not going to be that pleasant of a user experience, even though the hardware is so good and the performance is so good. If Microsoft or the Xbox team were able to lock this down and make the Xbox experience the only software that you interacted with, as in you don't have to go into Windows, like maybe you could dual boot into Windows, but you don't have to use Windows, then I would give this 2 thumbs up. But as it is, I prefer using ASUS's Armory Crate. It just works better, the software, in my experience, than the Xbox experience. So then you end up using Armory Crate, Xbox experience, and Windows, and that is just dumb. There's so many ways to do anything. There are so many extra buttons that don't need to be used because they're duplicates of other things. It is a very confused mess of a product as far as software goes, even though the hardware is so good. So on that note, who is it for? It's like I said, this is for the handheld PC enthusiast who has a lot of money, because this is $1,000, and wants the best performance. And they also have to be someone who doesn't mind tinkering in software, doesn't mind messing with settings and updating drivers and doing all that, and is very familiar with Windows. Because if you're not familiar with Windows, you will have a hard time using this handheld. That's just the way it is. You're going to be interacting with Windows quite a bit, so know that. If you are that person who wants the best performance and doesn't mind using a Windows handheld, which is what this is, then it's top notch. Its performance is fantastic. The ergonomics are fantastic. There are so many things I like about this. I just wish Microsoft hadn't marketed this as a stupid Xbox. It's just not an Xbox. It's a Windows PC. So anyway, all right, that's the end of the video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe. If you loved it, share it with a friend. That would be really helpful for me. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.